Happy 4th of July, chaps. Or I guess it is July 17th, but still, this year marks the 250th anniversary of our nation. 250 years since our founding fathers signed the Declaration of Independence back in 1776. 250 years. That's gotta be like a pretty long time. From women's suffrage to the civil rights movement and the legalization of gay marriage, our country has since grown and evolved since its declared departure from Great Britain in 1776. But at its core, I wonder, is this country the same United States those founding fathers envisioned for us 250 years ago? Short answer, no, but actually yes. The truth is, America has changed in the ways our founding fathers could have never imagined. Our nation is larger, more diverse, and made up of people from countless cultures, religions, and backgrounds. Now, 250 years later, we find ourselves asking many of the same questions. If there's one lesson we can take away from the founders themselves, it's that disagreement has always been a part of America's story. To try and understand the founding fathers' vision, let's go back to the beginning. After the Revolutionary War, the newly established United States of America struggled under its first governing document, the Articles of Confederation. In 1787, leaders came across the states like George Washington, James Madison, Benjamin Franklin, and Alexander Hamilton gathered in Philadelphia and worked together to draft what would become the United States Constitution. Their goal was to create a government that was powerful enough to govern, but limited enough to protect individual freedom. But even among the nation's founders, there wasn't complete agreement. The Federalists, one of the political parties at the time, supported the new Constitution because they believed a stronger national government was necessary to keep the country united, protect the economy, and provide stability. On the other side were the Anti-Federalists. They argued that the Constitution needed stronger protections for individual rights. The Anti-Federalists feared that a powerful nation government could eventually threaten individual freedoms and become like the British government they had fought against. To address the Anti-Federalists' concerns, the Bill of Rights was added to the Constitution in 1791, guaranteeing freedoms such as speech, religion, press, peaceful assembly, and due process. The disagreement between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists remind us that America was never founded on complete agreement. Even the people who created the nation held different visions for its future. Yet through debate and compromise, America was built and strengthened. Through a disagreement of ideas, we are able to express and acknowledge each other's concerns, and we can learn to find solutions through compromise. The problem becomes when we disagree with one another far enough, it separates us as a people. It's hard to create a unified, shared cultural understanding across the United States, considering the scale of our country. Our nation, both in land and its people, is composed of diverse identities drastically different from one another. Based on findings of the 2020 US Census, this nation is home to over 331 million people. 331 million people of different values, ethnicities, economic backgrounds, and political beliefs. The list goes on. Although it's hard to enforce an identity into what America is, Michigan State University School of Journalism attempted to analyze the communities that make up our nation with the American Communities Project, or ACP for short, through journalism and social science. In their analysis, the ACP, quote, classifies the 3,100 counties in the United States into one of 15 different kinds of counties called community types. As a result, there's no guarantee the experiences and perspectives of someone living in Naperville, Illinois would accurately reflect those of someone who lives in Sandwich, Illinois, despite being a part of the same state. Different life experiences produce different needs, expectations, and definitions of success, making it nearly impossible for a single approach to satisfy the interests of all Americans. Everyone has different perspectives, so in order to better understand, I spoke with College of DuPage faculty for further insight on the matter.
I think that the basic political and social problems are maybe exacerbated by social media. It can make things more, but I actually think social media is just not the problem and it's not the solution.
Okay.
Of course, it can be a tool, and I'm not against people using it as a tool, but it doesn't actually change the real problem. And I think it also can be a tool where people think they're doing something and they're not. I'm sure you have friends who are like, what they do to be active is argue with people on Instagram. Okay, that is not productive. In the end, what matters is what people do actually together at their workplace, in the street, and that's why I think that the importance of social media is just overstated on both sides. If the alt-right has chat groups, chat rooms, and they go and they talk to each other and they're on social media, that doesn't actually matter that much. It's when they actually go out in the street with guns, or they go and attack people, or they really push politics in a certain direction, that's when it becomes, to me, really problematic.
Consequently, we have become a country that's operating on a wide array of different narratives.
Okay, don't get me wrong, there's an element of the internet which is poison, and it affects young people. And I think that people can get sucked into this world where they're really isolated and they're exposed to lots of damaging anti-human ideas. That's what I would call it. A lot of the alt-right the problem with me isn't that it's alt-right or whatever, it's that it's anti-human ideas. When you're talking about things that are, the anti-immigrant stuff, it's like they're not really people the same way that we are people. Or you see some of the sexist stuff, the Andrew Tate stuff. It's like anti-human ideas. It's like, well, women aren't quite people the same way as men. Okay, that's kind of crazy if you actually have a mom, it's just but these ideas can get pushed on people who are on social media all the time.
Mitrani argues that while social media is not the root cause of society's problems, it can expose people to harmful and dehumanizing ideas. According to a 2020 Pew Research Center survey, about 2/3 of Americans, about 64%, say social media has a mostly negative effect on the way things are going in the country. Through this widespread of different narratives, propelled through increased access to social media, people are discouraged from being able to trust each other. Yo, dog, low-key, people just be saying online, man. Yet, because social media content creators and online commentators operate as this authority figure we view behind a screen, we are more willing to trust them. They are speaking on a topic that you, yes, you, the viewer, are clearly interested in. Otherwise, why would you have clicked on this video? And what's keeping you around for so long? Also, if you're rocking with the video so far, be sure to give us a like and drop a comment. So just gotta support the brand, you know what I mean? In another study by the Pew Research Center about Americans' trust in each other, published on May 8, 2025, it is stated that, quote, Americans trust each other less than they did a few decades ago. The share of adults who said most people can be trusted declined from 46% in 1972 to 34% in 2018, according to the General Social Survey. And, quote, in a 2023 to 24 Pew Research Center poll, an identical 34% said most people can be trusted. Internet and technology, news and information, and political polarization were all listed as reasons for the increase in distrust. Too much of our modern day American politics, in my opinion, has departed from maintaining decorum in favor of seeking an enemy to blame our problems on. The study from Pew states political polarization may result in people believing they share less in common with their fellow citizens and reinforce an us versus them outlook. Ultimately, this distrust amongst people leads to an increase in individuality. While it's understandable there are people that prefer partaking in activities by themselves than with others, the issue arises when that state of being alone turns into a feeling of loneliness. The study from Pew also recognizes that through this increase of screen usages, it's more distracting having an in-person face-to-face conversation with other people, leading to an increase in isolation. In a survey done by the American Psychological Association, or APA for short, on stress in America, results show that loneliness and emotional disconnection appear to have become a defining feature of life in America, as a majority of US adults say societal division is a significant source of stress in their lives. As Americans become increasingly divided by the ideas they consume online, can we still be united by the shared narrative of the American dream that people have held onto for generations? As the narrative of the American dream goes, it's this mythology that anyone, regardless of background, can achieve success through hard work and determination. But is such a narrative sustainable to those who believe in it? Not really. Our American system is rooted in a predominantly capitalist ideology where profit is the name of the game. It's a system that encourages innovation, private achievement, but, most importantly, competition. American writer and civil rights activist Audre Lorde captures this idea in her essay, Age, Race, Class, and Sex Women Redefining Difference, writing, as members of such an economy, we all have been programmed to respond to the human differences between us with fear and loathing, and to handle that difference in one of three ways: ignore it, and if that's not possible, copy it if we think it's dominant, or destroy it if we think it's subordinate. But we have no patterns for relating across our human differences as equals. Now, if Americans are encouraged to view others as equals in a competitive environment, doesn't it ultimately contradict the philosophy of competition? I mean, success is no longer determined solely by effort, but also by social and economic inequalities.
There's a huge politics aimed at getting us to blame each other, to blame other regular working class people. And it is very much pushed by the politicians who have an interest in getting ordinary people to blame some other group of ordinary people rather than the rich. I don't think that's about social media. I think that's about politics. And the politics of capitalism, which is dominated by a tiny layer of wealthy people who own everything, has always been to get working class people to blame each other and fight each other. And so that is what is at the root of us not being united.
Now, Lorde states, much of Western European history conditions us to see human differences in simplistic opposition to each other: dominant, subordinate, good, bad, up, down, superior, inferior. In a society where the good is defined in terms of profit rather than in terms of human need, there must always be some group of people who, through systemized oppression, can be made to feel surplus, to occupy the place of the dehumanized inferior. Going off this idea, we exist in a system where fundamentally, to be successful is to take advantage of one another. An evolution of a Western European imperialism of winners and losers that distinguishes its participants by the physical characteristics of their humanity. Playing the game of the American dream, in one's quest for economic prosperity, they would inevitably have to take advantage or, at worst, exploit an inferior group of people for their benefit. And, at least according to Lorde's thesis, the determining factors of what makes one inferior would be our own physical characteristics.
Thomas Jefferson, in a lot of ways, he did a great thing. I'm not going to deny what he did great in terms of launching the stepping stones of what we are trying to build off of when it comes to liberty and justice for all. But while he was writing about liberty and justice for all, he was enslaving folks and getting black people impregnated. So that we're clear with that. So, he was living in a duality of existence. I'm not knocking these people and saying that people are bad. I'm saying if we're going to talk about the holistic of America 250, then talk about all of it. Talk about these black people that fought in 1776. Talk about slaves that we had under enslavement, the chattel slavery. And what would equate to like trillions of dollars. In today's numbers. The money that those slaves produced for this country would equate to hundreds of trillions of dollars in today's money. That's a huge impact.
In a paper published by Equitable Growth by Mark Stelzner of Connecticut College and Sven Beckert of Harvard University, enslaved labor accounted for between 12.5% and 18% of the growth in U.S. output per capita between 1839 and 1859, demonstrating that slavery was not a peripheral institution, but a major driver in American economic growth before the Civil War. Expanding off what Swope said about Jefferson's duality of existence, America exists in dualistic identities. We live in the narrative of the American dream and how much of an ideal economic model our country is globally. But there's a hidden, often shadowed storyline of our country that is often ignored to maintain this image of greatness. For context, Lorde described herself as a black lesbian feminist socialist mother of two, including one boy, and a member of an interracial couple, but also writes, I usually find myself a part of some group defined as other, deviant, inferior, or just plain wrong. When exploring the nuances of race and gender, she proceeded to write, the literatures of all women of color recreate the texture of our lives, and mainly white women are interested in ignoring the real differences. For as long as any difference between us means one of us must be inferior, then the recognition of any difference must be fraught with guilt. To allow women of color to step out of stereotypes is too guilt provoking, for it threatens the complacency of those women who view oppression only in terms of sex. Refusing to recognize difference makes it impossible to see the different problems and pitfalls facing us as women. Based on this idea, we can see the dualistic identities in which America exists more clearly. The American dream creates this idea that everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed, but America's history shows that this idea is not experienced equally. Why our troubled legacy is taboo and difficult to reckon with is because as long as we exist in this capitalistic opposition, those who benefit from the system will always feel some kind of self aware guilt for being superior. At its heart, the American dream seeks to reflect Jefferson's idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But now, after everything, how are we as a people supposed to fulfill this? Before we answer this question, we must first try and understand what Thomas Jefferson meant by this statement in the Declaration of Independence. The full quote reads, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Now, it's important to understand what this document is and what it isn't. The Declaration of Independence is not a legally binding text, but it remains one of the most influential expressions of American ideals. Written to justify the colonies' separation from Great Britain, it argues that all people possess certain rights, rights that do not come from the government, but exist simply because we as people are human. When a government fails to fulfill that purpose, Jefferson argues that citizens have the right to challenge it. Now, according to Jefferson's perspective in the Declaration of Independence, would, I'm going to be quoting Jefferson now, abolishing or altering a, now this is in quotes, destructive government to, I'm still quoting Jefferson, institute new government, that was a Jefferson quote, be the solution for a marginalized American people seeking protection for their unalienable rights? Not necessarily.
I think having a community on the scale of a whole country is sort of impossible. There's 330 million people, and in the context of this very class divided society, we really have different interests. Elon Musk's interests and mine are really different, and I'm not that interested in being in a community with him, if that makes sense.
We're gonna have to get out of our living rooms. We're gonna have to come up from behind the computer. We're gonna have to put our cell phones down.
It's down.
And we're gonna have to literally come together as a group of people and demand that we stand on common decency, at least human respect towards one another. But I'm telling you right now, the position that we're in, that's a revolutionary movement. Tantamount to what it was back in 1776. I'm not saying it's a war, but it's a movement. I'm just saying it's oxymoronic to me right now, whether or not we can stand on the phraseology United States. Those two words seem to clash to me right now on this land. We have to take a stand. Groups have to come together in big numbers, not to overthrow anything. No, to actually see if we can elevate and support the very integrity of what the document actually stands for, so that all people who are quote unquote created equal can have rights, unalienable rights. That I can do my thing, man, without fear of persecution simply because I'm a black man. And if you don't vibe with what I'm doing, then you go and you hang out with somebody that you do vibe with. But don't rail against me because I'm doing it, because there's people that vibe with me. But yet we respect that together.
Ultimately, the point is that we must learn to stand together, not force ourselves to get along and be a part of a single unified culture, not necessarily overthrowing anything to be the next victor or partaking in a clash to snatch power for yourself. We must learn to, at the very least, coexist with one another. You see, the American dream is an impossible narrative. Perhaps that's why it's called a dream. Trying to perfect the values of a system rooted in taking advantage of one another is simply unsustainable for a people living together in a society. I mean, nothing is perfect. No human is perfect. I mean, if we were, I imagine we would live all harmoniously in a perfect utopia right now, but that is far from the case, unfortunately. And it is because we are so imperfect as a people, we cannot solve all our problems on our own. That's why it's important for us to count on each other. You see, humans are a social species. We didn't become the dominant living organism on planet Earth by doing everything ourselves. We have historically thrived off systems in which we all have worked together in some way or another. Since the Sumerians came together in ancient Mesopotamia to form the earliest known civilization, humanity progressed at an accelerating rate through innovative discoveries for the betterment of mankind. Innovations in communication, mathematics, labor, and irrigation. Heck, they developed the concept of a wheel. Imperfections will never go away. We, as a species, may never even reach such a level. I mean, we can come up with solutions to our problems today, but that may bring about problems for the people of tomorrow. It's part of why the Federalists believed in having a loose interpretation of the Constitution when they were developing the United States in its early years. They wanted the federal government to have implied powers, sure, but they also recognized that just as this nation would evolve, so would its people. And as a result, it's up to us to keep having a larger conversation with one another so we can continue to evolve as a nation. Not just having conversations in our bubbles of people we agree with, but, on larger scales with perspectives conflicting with ours.
I don't even want us to agree with one another. That's the spice of life. It's differences and disagreements. That makes life worth living sometimes, that you don't agree with everybody. And you might have disagreements and arguments. But man, if we take a stand as a people that we want to at least, like they did in 1776, 250 years, they stood up for values that they thought were admirable. For human decency, liberty, and justice for all.
By recognizing we are not perfect, that our ideas are not perfect, and putting these ideas in conversation with other imperfect and especially conflicting ideas, we can at least try to figure out a solution to our problems. Bring together a synthesis and antithesis to produce a compromised synthesis that, well, frankly, won't be perfect either. I mean, like life, there will always be an expiration date to anything. Even plastic, believe it or not. But ideas? Now that's something that lives on forever. I mean, it's like the quote from former Vice President Kamala Harris. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you. We exist in the progress and evolution that came from before us, and it is our duty to continue that progress and evolution for the people who advance us, so that they will take the information we have discovered and progress on that. Just as we take inspiration from successful models in the past, we must also reckon with and learn from the failures and imperfections of our history. But before we can do that, at the very least, we must learn to coexist together as a people again. I don't even think it necessarily has to be anything too politically charged, like sparking debate and conversation with strangers on the street. Coming together can be as simple as holding the door open for someone, offering help to someone who may need it, or maybe even connecting with a stranger by doing something as simple as asking for their personal recommendation on something. When Courier Multimedia staff Yael, Montes, and I went on a trip to Kansas City for a video we were making on the World Cup, one of the most notable aspects of our trip was the kindness and hospitality many of the folk we encountered shared with us. Folks from Illinois, if ever in the area, do check out Hayward's, and don't forget to shout out Dominique, the GOAT. Yeah. I mean, it's not like they necessarily knew us or anything, but they treated us like we were one of their own.
And I always look at people as in their spirit, not just who they facially look like. So that's the key thing. Look people in their spirit and talk to people, because everybody has a spirit. So you look at people and you don't just judge them off the basis of what they're looking like, what they're going through, what they have on. You just talk to them in a way where it's love, it's grace, it's mercy, it's kind, you know?
United States of America, the sweet land of liberty. I mean, love it or hate it, it's home. And if over 330 million of us are going to be living together in this big metaphorical neighborhood, well, we would have to be comfortable coexisting with one another. Otherwise, we'll never be at rest. Fade out! Okay.
Crossfade.
Crossfade.